Welcome to Kidney Conversations. I'm yours truly, C. Allen Bennett, better known as Chef Renee. And when I tell you, I'm always excited because this is another day that we're living in the land of the living. It's another day that we thank God for life, health, and strength. Everyone know me, and you know my story as a kidney transplant survivor. How we created Kidney Conversations is we wanted to make sure that we showed all different sides of people living with KD, which is kidney disease. And I don't like to say disease, so that's where we get the KD from. Today, I have Janessa Conway here, and I'm gonna tell you why. Janessa is not a transplant survivor. She's not a kidney patient. She's not on dialysis. But what's important is sometimes we have to bring you faces of the family members because family members go through just as much. They may not be the actual person, but they have to deal with the aftermath and the recourse of a loved one that may be ill with kidney disease, KD. Ms. Conway is here today because she was living with her dad who had kidney disease and was on dialysis for 24 years. She was only 11, 12 years old when he first was diagnosed. And I thought it would be an amazing idea to have her to come on the show because I'll never forget when I was soliciting dialysis patients to try to give them services and work with them. And I did a big speech at GW. And Ms. Conway, a lady came up to me afterwards. You know, I was shaking all these hands. Everybody was excited. You know, I got carried away and all of that. And the lady came up and said, everything was really good. But what about me? She says, I'm the wife. My husband can't work anymore. We have 4 kids. Now I have to pick up the slack and not only take care of the 4 kids, but also my husband too. Wow. I had a student, Janessa, where her husband was in his 20s and he was diagnosed with kidney failure. However, he had a rare blood disease and he could not get a transplant. The first thing she said her husband asked her was, are you going to leave me? So I thought that it would be befitting today that we would bring you on to hear your story about what you witnessed, what you seen firsthand. I want to know things about going to the doctor. I want to know during the terrible times, during the good times. I want to hear that, but most importantly, I want to hear from your point of view and how you saw it and how you felt about it, because everyone know that most girls are daddy girls, you know?
Yeah.
So I want to talk to Ms. Conway today to get a little more information about her experience, and I am so happy that you agreed to come in today. Let's give Ms. Conway a hand, everybody. I'm excited. So Ms. Conway, let's start off and tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, thank you for having me today. My story starts when my father's kidneys first started to go
fail.
bad.
Okay.
Yes. It started off as he had to go to the bathroom. He had an urge to go, but he couldn't produce urine. And that went on for about a month. And then we went to the doctor. They did blood work and his doctor told him he had renal failure. And they gave us a lot of information on what the kidney does. It's basically a filter to filter out all the toxins out of your blood and your system. And at a young age, I was 12, 11, and it was a lot for me to learn. My mother, she was a nurse's aide, so I wasn't foreign to the medical industry, but it was foreign to me be so personal. So at 12 years old, every 3 days, because every other day, my father had to get dialysis. And we were up at this hospital center, and I'm waiting 4 hours a day. And when he gets off, he's extremely exhausted. We're giving him water and different kind of food. He barely could eat sometimes.
And you know what? And let me just say this before you go on. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, the main purpose of the C. Allen Foundation, this is what we do. And a lot of times when we ask you to give and all of that, It is because you have to understand that a lot of people on dialysis was not as fortunate as I am. A lot of people can't work because of them being weak. And there's a process to get disability. It doesn't just happen overnight. And it's important that we have resources that we can be able to help these families when they have a loved one that may be on dialysis. So, Ms. Conway, Janessa, so you was witnessing things like him not being able to go to the bathroom, him not being able to really keep things on his stomach, him being weak. Go ahead, finish up.
Yeah.
We'll continue. I'm sorry.
He would sleep after the 4 hours. He would come home and he'd sleep the rest of the day out. He probably wouldn't get his strength back up until the next time he had to go to dialysis. And that's what it seemed like. He would build his strength up just to be able to get back to dialysis. Because if he didn't get dialyzed, he would be extremely out of it. And he could barely move. He would swell up. He retained fluid. And that was even scarier than the diagnosis itself.
Because I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you, what was your mental psyche at 12, 13, 11, 12, 13, and 14 and 15, knowing that this is what your dad is going through?
To me, it was normal because it started when I was so young. By the time I was 15, it was routine. I knew his medicines off the top of my head. He'd been hospitalized several times where he was incapacitated, and I had to tell the doctor he's on this medicine, that medicine, and how many times a day he needs to take it.
And how old were you then?
14, 15.
Wow, and you knew all your dad medicines?
Yes.
And everything?
Yes,
Awesome.
his diet plan. I spent 24 years of my life in the halls of Washington Hospital Center because he was in and out of the hospital. He had several grafts of shunts that was shut down. He had it here. He had it in both thighs, both lower arms, both upper arms. By the time he was 60, he was double amputee because the shunts pulled so much blood that his circulation throughout the years started to get poured to his limbs.
And you know what? And it just reminded me, and excuse me for getting emotional, we'll take a commercial break soon, but it just reminds me of being on dialysis and the many times I had to get up in the middle of the night just to stand up because of the cramping in my legs and because of losing circulation after treatment, that it was very difficult just to even move around, to the point where sometimes just getting in the house from the garage was a chore. And that is why I would never wish being on dialysis and having kidney failure. I would never wish that on anyone because of the toll that it takes on your body.
Yes.
And did you notice just the decline in having just a quality of life? Talk to us about that.
So my dad was in his 30s, late 30s, when he got his first shunt. And I saw my superhero decline from the strongest man in the world. And in my mind, even though he had two legs amputated, half his hand amputated, he was still the strongest man in the world to me. Because who do you know that can endure such pain and torment? That's what it seemed like to me, because the dialysis rips you apart. Like, it's literally taking the blood out and pushing it back in, and your body has to catch up with that. But it showed me that your body is as strong as your mind, as strong as your will. It showed, my father showed me how to be a praying warrior, because in the midst of his body, physical decline, his spirit was getting stronger. His mind was getting stronger. His faith became even more stronger, because when you see yourself in the mirror from what you used to be and what the kidney disease does to your body. It mentally scars you. But he took those scars and he made deposits into other people's lives.
And that's what I want to talk about. We're going to take a break right now. When we come back off a break, we want Jonessa to tell us what was that turning point for him to start to become stronger, even though his body seemed to be weaker, but he was getting stronger mentally. And I want to know, how did that transition take place? Remember, the purpose here is how we can help someone live a better life. We'll be right back. All right, guys, I'm back with Jonessa Conway, and we're listening to her story. Before we went to break, I wanted to talk about, she started seeing that he started to get more, I think, stronger, mentally stronger, and spiritually and all that. Talk to us about that. How did that take place?
Well, it started about from the beginning. My father has always been a praying man. He joined a church when I was about 15, and it was a very young pastor. The pastor wasn't even ordained yet, and he just had a strong belief in this pastor, and he liked the way he preached and how he would make it just personable, like understandable. Like he would talk about the scriptures in the Bible as if he was explaining or commentating a basketball game. So he felt like, oh, I can relate to that.
Yes.
And that's when it started. He joined the deacon board of the church and became a deacon. I was about 15, 16 years old.
And he was in a wheelchair?
No, not yet.
Okay.
He wasn't amputated. He didn't get amputated until he was on his 15th year. On dialysis. So he went 15 years on dialysis with generally the problems that would come along with being on dialysis so long. Just the shunt would shut down. I even had an episode where one of the nurses at the dialysis center penetrated the back of the catheter inside of his arm. And when he came home, blood was squirting out everywhere. I had to wrap his arm with a towel and call the ambulance for him. And they told me if I didn't know how to stop the bleeding, that my father would have passed away. And that's what made me say, let me get more in tune with his health and what I can do as his child, because I'm the only one here with him when my mom's at work. So I need to know what he can eat, what he can't eat, what he should drink, how much he should drink. Which
is really good, because that's how one of my closest friends, Dr. Leslie Bonner, that's how his mother passed, in reference to something went wrong with the fistula, and she was in the restroom, and they said, they reported to Dr. Bonner that the bathroom was just covered with blood when they found his mom, because of her situation, doing home treatments and all of that. So was your dad doing hemodialysis?
Yes, he went through the hemodialysis. He had a kidney transplant that rejected his body.
Oh, so let's talk about that.
Yes.
What happened?
When the transplant was being done, the kidney ripped, and they didn't know until it was inside of his body, and he started to get sick. And we had to go back to the hospital when they had to take it out. He had to get back on dialysis. So
how was his mental?
That kind of broke him in a lot of ways. He was in a deep depression. He didn't want to go to church. He didn't really want to do anything except for go to dialysis. And sometimes that was hard for me to get him out the bed to go, because sometimes he felt like he just didn't want to do it.
And you know what, Jonessa, that's one of my worst fears, because I feel like that is so much work for me to do, and I try to do everything I can to take care of my kidney, because that's one of the worst fears. to wake up and the kidney begins to reject. And it's almost like, ladies and gentlemen, you go through hell and then you come out of it to go back in it. And how many people have I interviewed, Janessa, that said that they were ready to just give up? You know what I'm saying? Because they didn't want to go back through that again, of that cycle, because of the wear and tear that it puts on our bodies. So how did he come out of that situation?
A lot of prayer, a lot of support. It is very important when your loved one or family member is going through, you check on them. You bring them a meal. You come past from time to time, call them. If they don't answer, go knock on that door. Be there, be a staple in their life because they need it. Their own mental is messing with them. Sometimes they do want to give up. Sometimes it gets to be too much, but you got to let them know you are loved and we need you. Push through.
And you know what? You hear that? You are loved. We need you. And push through. And the reason why I'm glad, Janessa, you don't really know how you blessing me today. So even though your cousin wear my soul out, but you'll know how you blessing me today. I'm going to tell you why. Because I can remember, I have a big family and we do a lot of functions. And I can remember I didn't want to not go to the functions, but to go to the functions and have to lay on the sofa the whole time because you don't have any energy at all. And to me, I didn't want the attention, but my family didn't know how to show me because no one really knew about kidney failure, kidney disease. And people don't know what you're going through unless they live with you. And by me living by myself, they don't know about the weakness. They only see me operating, but they don't know what you go through on the inside. And that's why I say all the time to one of my assistants here that I just thank God that he was there. Because when you live alone and you have no one and you're suffering, you know, Janessa said something that I want y'all to really pay attention to. You got to check on your people. You got to go by there. You got to be able to visit. Like me, Janessa, because, you know, I'm a man, I'm a proud person. I didn't want people to come to the dialysis center to see me. I didn't want my mother to come there and see that I'm restricted in the chair. I would never forget one of my close friends, Sean Wiggins, came in with his jolly self. And as soon as I saw him, I broke down because I just didn't want him as a graduate, a former student and all that to see me, the leader, the owner, laying back there with blood coming out and going in. And there's nothing I could do about it. Or the worst part is when you see injustice going on in the center, how some of the healthcare workers can be. And you don't really know if you can say anything or not because you're in that position to where they can come and do something to you. So it's just, it takes a toll mentally. So I want to know, how are you mentally at 17, 18, 19 when you're supposed to be graduating? You're supposed to be going off, you know, doing the things that we do at that age. How was your mental during that time, knowing that your dad was going through so much?
Wow, I've never been asked that question. I in my mind, I was fine. But when I got older, I realized I was in a depression myself because of what had been going through for so long. I said earlier, it seemed normal. But my friends didn't go through the things I went through. They didn't have to be at the hospital 3 times a week with their dad for 4 hours a day. They didn't have to go to doctor's appointments with their dad. So
did you get a little like bitter, like, hey, my friends are doing this and doing that, but I'm stuck in the hospital?
I did. I did. And once I turned 20, I was like, I'm not going to every dialysis treatment. I'll go to once a week and I'll be there. But I wanted to live my life. And it wasn't until my father had a bleeding ulcer in his stomach and he was literally bleeding from the inside. They had to put him in a medically induced coma. and he was bleeding tears, but it was blood. They told us to call our pastor and all of that, and like it was going to be the end. And I prayed and I cried. I pulled out my black stuff because in your head you listening to what the doctor said.
That's right. You preparing yourself.
Yeah, when my pastor came and prayed over my dad, and my mother and my father's ex-wife, my sister, my cousins, uncles, all of them. We filled up the whole operating room because they were going to operate on him. And we prayed and we prayed. The doctors say they don't know how it stopped, the bleeding stopped. They went in, they gave him the meds, it stopped. After that, he woke up 3 days after being in a coma for 3 days, and he said, the first thing he was singing, whenever I need help, it comes from the Lord. He was whispering this coming out of his coma. And the only thing I could do was cry, because at this moment I'm witnessing a miracle from God.
Yes.
Because the doctor sold it up. He was done. Call your pastor, it's over. He came out of the coma singing that his help came from the Lord. He saw God, and he told him, go back and be strong and be a witness to what you have been through. And I just cried. My faith grew stronger
just by
day.
watching that, just by
witnessing that miracle.
Yes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our last commercial break at this time. When we come back, I just want to dig a little deeper now into Janessa. We talked a lot of it about the dad, because again, the purpose of the show is to help people, especially loved ones who are dealing with people with KD. We'll be right back. Well, I tell you guys, this show has been an emotional journey, because as Janessa talks, it just starts to bring back things that I witnessed and things that I went through myself. So you got to forgive me. Janessa, I want to go just a little deeper now. I want to go into the ending of the relationship of the 24 years of dialysis with your dad. And I want you to talk about what kind of legacy that you feel that he left behind. Talk to us about that.
Okay. During the ending stages of my dad's life, he had double amputee, half his left hand was cut off, and he was very high in spirits. He was very in tune with the church, and he started a turkey basket program at New Mount Nebo Church. And it's 27 years old now.
Wow.
But he started that in the beginning stages of his journey. And at the end, the doctors, he was at the hospital. There's something about his stomach lining because of the hemodialysis, the home dialysis. It ran his stomach bad. But that was the ending part. They couldn't do anything with his intestines. They were so soft. And they told us call the family. Everybody was by his side. He was 60.
Wow, that's young.
Yes, he was 60 years old. And they just started to unplug the tubes, and we were praying and singing all around him. Oh, he has 10 grandkids.
Wow.
All of his grandkids were there.
Okay.
Between my sister and I. His brother was there. The whole family was there. And he just looked around. He could barely talk because he had the thing down his throat, ventilator down his throat for so long. And he was just looking around with such pride. And he was like, for me, y'all did this for me. And we was singing and, telling stories about his life, how proud we are of him. And he just closed his eyes and went away peacefully with his family around him. But before he passed away, he told all of us, he couldn't verbally say it, but he mouthed to us, you know what you have to do and get it right.
Yes.
He loved that Dietrich Haddon song. I just want to make it in. I just make it a heaven.
That's right.
Yeah, just want to get in. But the legacy he left behind, the turkey giving baskets at New Mount Nebo. My sister and I still get it together, and we serve 450 families with turkeys, side orders, bread, and teas. This year, because of COVID, or last year because of COVID, we had to do gift cards. So we're going to do that again this year, the gift cards. And we did it because the dialysis patients, his friends, his peers at the dialysis centers, the nurses that he knew throughout. He's been at Washington Hospital Center, the dialysis center down the street on New York Avenue, dialysis center on Pennsylvania Avenue. So throughout the years, he had grown a community of people. And he gave away those baskets, made sure that our pastor did this every year. That's his legacy.
And this is something that you and your sister still doing?
We're continue on doing it. We have a pop-up coming up on the 9th of October. We felt as though this year, as the family, we need to contribute monetarily and not just have the church contribute all the money, because it's close to $11,000. And we're doing it. We're sponsoring a pop-up, $50 a table, and all those $50 go towards the program. Anything people make at the pop-up, that's their own money. But our church, that young pastor, he was 24 years old. He's now the senior pastor of New Mount Nebo Church of God in Capital Heights, Maryland. And he makes sure he lets my father program live on. And that's a deposit my father made. Not to mention that he had a similar cafe talk. It was called Hostel, Helping Ourselves to Live, where it was just a peer group of dialysis patients talking about what they're going through. Sometimes they had the family come out as well. It was at the Washington Hospital Center for a few years.
That's awesome.
But yeah, those are the deposits.
I tell you one thing. I am truly honored, and I really appreciate you coming in today. And I want to close out with Janessa. I want you to look in your camera, and I want you, what kind of advice or encouragement would you give to that young girl who's helping her father right now, where you was 20 some years ago? What would you say to that young girl who's helping her dad? Look right in the camera and talk to her.
What is your journey is your journey. God put you in the position you are in because you can make it happen. Don't be discouraged. Love on your loved one. Make sure you encourage them. Feed them. And make spiritual deposits. Always uplift them. Pray with them. Never feel like it's too much. God will never give you anything you cannot bear. You are equipped for whatever he puts in front of you.
Yes. Which is really good. So, audience, our time is almost up, but what I want to do is I want to make sure that we have a clear understanding that part of what we need to do is sometimes you're going to have to ask for help. And the reason why I say that is because many times people have no clue to what we go through as a dialysis patient. And Janessa witnessed firsthand the ups and downs, ins and outs, like you all are doing. And Janessa, did you have any support system?
My mother.
Okay, so your mother was your support system.
Yes.
Which was good. So it's important, ladies and gentlemen, that if you don't have a mom, to get somebody that can encourage you, somebody that can say, hold on. I thought about my mom in her late 70s coming to cook for me every day, once I hit the transplant and all of that, and trying to carry heavy sodas and all of that. And I didn't want any of that. And I just think that it's important that we develop a circle. And it doesn't have to be blood. It could be people like you and I that may know something about this, that we can help lessen the load for you. But the important thing is that you're not alone. I want you to remember that. As our time is up, I want you to remember that you're not alone. One thing that it is important, it starts in the mind. Once you get your mind right, everything else will follow. Janessa said that in a different way, but she talked about once her father mentally became stronger, then things started to get better. So that's what we want you to do, is we want you to work on your mind so you can make your life more of a healthier and more of a quality life to live while you are in the process or dealing with kidney disease. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Janessa, for coming out. And we just appreciate you. And I hope that someone is encouraged today to keep going and never stop.
Amen.
That was